yes. Hey, we're live. Hey guys, you're watching Tech Radar. My name is Basil and we're actually on time today. Yes, I know. Seriously surprised, but no technical gremlins, which is ace. And this video, for anyone who didn't catch the title or the alert that went out earlier today, it's all about these two phones. It's the Honor View 10 and the OnePlus 5T. Both of these have very, very similar rear camera setups. It's 16 megapixels plus 20 megapixels with f1.7, f1.8 lenses. They're both £449. It's little wonder all of you guys want to know, how do the cameras compare? Before I jump into these, you can already see the OnePlus 5T review on techradar.com. The Honor View 10 review should be up next week. I've been using it for over a week though, so any questions about either of these two phones or anything around the cameras, that's what this video is all about. If you're wondering what this laptop is, it's a Surface Book. If you're wondering what that is behind me, it is the TV with the grid of the images that I'll be talking about. And also you can head over to the link in the description below. There you can see the photos that we've taken on both of these devices that I've lovingly placed in grids, so you can compare them without having to flip between tabs. Right, let's start off by taking a look at some of your questions. Kicking off, shout out to Dope Gaming, who subscribed and turned on notifications to watch this video. Thank you. The British Unknown was only 82 minutes early. Enthusiastic indeed. Thanks very much. Finley Het wants this to be a good comparison, so we will do our best. Rahul says his name. Hey Rahul. Ultimate Gamer, High Tech Radar, Ricky Colley, yo, Costas, loads of people filling up the chat room. And so let's get to it. So if you've clicked the link and you've seen the picture that we've got in the background, I'm also getting it up in front of me too. This is a pretty simple picture. It is no background blur modes, nothing, just plain automatic. And you can see instantly that the OnePlus 5T ups the contrast over the Honor View 10. With the increased contrast, you get blacker black, so the picture just looks richer. Also though, it's interesting because when you look at the background, you've also got higher dynamic range on the OnePlus 5T versus the Honor View 10. So the reason that's interesting is because when I was actually taking the picture, the OnePlus 5T flipped auto HDR on, like the words actually came on the screen, whereas that didn't happen on the Honor View 10. So the auto HDR on the OnePlus 5T does actually work really, really well. Neither of these devices have optical image stabilization, though you do have a wider angle of view on the Honor View 10. This is great because you'll potentially be able to get more people, more signposts in your picture, and so if you're taking group shots, that's ideal. But it does also mean that when we zoom in, the text on the Honor View 10 isn't going to be quite as crisp, quite as large as that on the OnePlus 5T. Giving you a little bit of a background, both of these pictures, and in fact all of the pictures except for the macro, were taken side by side or at the same location. We didn't try and compensate for the fact that one has a wider angle of view. That's to give you a real representation of what you will get when you point and shoot, and they were all taken in plain automatic mode. Now, the Honor View 10 has the Kirin 970 processor in it, which has the NPU, the Neural Processing Unit. Huawei and Honor says this is going to make the camera be able to detect the scene. So whether it's a cat, whether it's a dog, whether it's a person, whether it's a theater stage and all that, which is really, really cool. So it means it's slightly smarter. But one thing that it doesn't do on screen is auto HDR it when you've got a high contrast scene. So maybe that's something that they can look into. Definitely if this picture is anything to go by. Let's see what you guys are saying in the comments. Honor V10 is priced £100 less than the OnePlus 5T in India. What do you think? And that's from Ricky Colley. That's really cool. I didn't know that, so appreciate you jumping in there. So the Honor View 10 will be the better device if you want the better value for money for storage. It also, there's a really solid feeling device side by side. They both are really premium. Also, again, anyone who wants a front fingerprint scanner, you'll prefer the Honor View 10. But the OnePlus 5T based on this camera comparison, which I'll talk about a little bit more, and the OLED display, it could be better if you don't really care about expandable storage. Also, power under the hood is very, very similar. If you can get the Honor View 10 for £100 less than the OnePlus 5T, I'd personally probably go for the Honor View 10 because I really, really like it, but it is going to come down to your personal preference. A lot of that will be dictated by the camera, and so let's talk more about that. And if we jump on to our next picture, we have, there you go, we've got Tom behind the screen, behind the camera, manning the picture changing. We have our macro shot. Now this is the only shot I moved the cameras so that they could represent the same kind of framing or similar kinds of framing. And interestingly here, despite the fact that the Honor View 10 is less contrasty, it actually is able to get more detail out of the close-up shot, and that's also in spite of the fact it has a wider angle. There appears to be a little bit less processing potentially on the Honor View 10. Looking at the shot itself, the Honor View 10 was a little bit more accurate in general when it came to colors. So between detail being on point, focus was really on point across both. The Honor View 10 takes this round for me. So let's take a look at some more of your questions. We've got quite a few coming in thick and fast. So Sam Jamir, which has the best camera aperture? That's a really good question. So the OnePlus 5T is f1.7, whereas the Honor View 10 is f1.8, though the second lens on the Honor View 10 is f2, I think it is, and I think this is dual f1.7. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Ultimate Gamer says, what phone do you use? My response, whatever phone I'm reviewing. So I have actually been using the View 10 for the last couple of weeks. Roshan Jones, hello Roshan, nice to see you on here. Adib says hi as well. British Unknown, different classes of phone. So British Unknown, thank you, you're answering one of the questions. Abdil, Kirin or Snapdragon. So that's another key difference between these. And you may say it doesn't really affect the cameras, but it kind of does, the processors that are inside. So you've got the Kirin 970, which is on the Mate 10, Mate 10 Pro on the View 10, and that's versus the Snapdragon 835. Both of these in day-to-day usage perform quite well similarly. They both benchmark incredibly well. They're both perfect for gaming, and they're both going to mean that you can shoot things like 4K video, etc. What really is going to dictate with the View 10 whether or not you are getting the most out of that, Kirin, is how much you rate the AI mode. So that's the smart scene recognition, the fact it can tell between a dog, the difference between a dog and between a cat. And indeed, I've had some really good experiences having done that. So I took a picture of one of my friend's cats, and it just made everything that was meant to be sharp really, really nice and sharp. And if I pinch right in, you can see, like for a phone with no image stabilization and a shot taken indoors, it all looks really, really good. But for other scenarios that aren't things like cats, as we'll see when I talk about this comparison, the Honor View 10 doesn't necessarily stack up, and mainly that is down to the dynamic range, but we'll also talk about low light performance as well. So before I jump into that and more questions, it is time to take some more of yours. A lot of you guys are loving the Kirin 970 processor, so there's a lot of like interesting points there. It'd be really interesting to know what you prefer about the Kirin 970 over the Snapdragon 835. We have a question from Jane on Total Film, who asks about the bezels on both of these devices. Which device has the bigger bezels? So you can see if I point both at the screen, the OnePlus 5T has smaller side bezels by comparison, though at the top and bottom it has slightly bigger bezels, or they're relatively similar, but what you do get is you get that front fingerprint scanner on the Honor View 10. So yeah, they're going to be relatively similar in hand feel, but the OnePlus 5T is a little bit more streamlined around the back, so maybe a little bit more comfortable for smaller hands, both 6-inch displays. If you want to know more about how they stack up generally, you can see the video comparison that we posted on Tuesday. It was a live chat between John and myself. John is a really keen OnePlus 5T user, and I've been using, like I said, the Honor View 10 for about 2 weeks. So thank you for that. Akash, I really like the cat. I'm really glad you like the cat. No, it isn't my cat. Earlier top clock speeds of the Kirin processor used to be on par with the Snapdragon and Exynos. However, this year Kirin has dropped the clock speeds. To be honest, with regards to clock speeds, I'm not too fussed on numbers. The day-to-day usage is what really matters. So Mate 10 Pro, the Honor View 10, I haven't seen either of these slow down in day-to-day use, so I'm not going to be hell-bent looking at clock speeds. And also with your variable cores, your 4 higher power, 4 lower power cores, what it's going to be clocked at. Yeah, what's really great about the Kirin 970 is the battery saving around, especially the Mate 10 Pro. That is still, out of all of the phones out right now, best in class for battery. And the fact you've got the 3750 milliamp battery versus around 3300 on the Honor View 10 versus the OnePlus 5T is another reason you might opt for the Honor View 10 over the OnePlus 5T. So that is enough about the chipsets. Let's get back to the cameras, people. Right, the next picture is a signpost. Now this picture was taken with background defocus mode on, so wide aperture mode, and it was to see how both of the phones compared when background defocusing really clean lines. So there is a very clear white black difference. You've still got the wider angle of view on the Honor View 10 by contrast to the OnePlus 5T, but actually the OnePlus 5T does a cleaner job of background defocusing. Is it more natural? You can't really tell with a really clean line, but it is definitely cleaner, especially around this side of the left hand side of the object. There's just a lot more hazing around the Honor View 10. What's also really cool about the Honor View 10 though is that you can retrospectively adjust the blur, so you can make it more blurry, you can make it less blurry, whereas the OnePlus 5T gives you a certain amount of background blur and it is unchangeable. Maybe that's where they're able to make it better off the bat because it's a one size fits all. Who knows? For anyone who's joined us a little bit late, hasn't seen already, you can download all of these grids. The link is in the description below to Google Photos album, and you can take part. You can also comment directly on the pictures as well. So background defocus with some really clean, clear objects. The Honor View 10 maybe wins when it comes to things you can play about with afterwards, but the OnePlus 5T definitely wins in terms of snap, shoot, and you've got the final result picture. Jumping onto something that's a little bit more complicated, and you've got background defocus mode on with much less clean objects. We've got this like grassy type plant, and it's got a lot of very like specific but also rough layers. And it's really nice and clear that you've got a lot better, kind of more natural looking background defocus on the OnePlus 5T. What's interesting is when you look at the pictures, the OnePlus 5T also looks better for color, better for contrast. But when I was actually there, and I went back there today with one of the professional photographers who works in the same building as me, the Honor View 10 actually has slightly more accurate, less muted colors. But if you want a picture that's camera to phone ready and doesn't need any tweaking, the OnePlus 5T is once again the one for you, and it does handle that background defocus a little bit better, whereas the Honor View 10 is the one that will give you that versatility after the beat, and slightly, in this instance, more accurate colors. So generally speaking, I was quite surprised. I was surprised in the sense that I expected it to be a little bit more of an even fight, but the OnePlus really has improved on the OnePlus 5, because I did very similar side by side, and the Honor View 10 actually beat the OnePlus 5. So it's really great to see that OnePlus has improved the camera on the 5T. I'm going to jump onto the next round in a sec, but first let's take a look at some more of your comments. We have a comment from Inevitable Catastrophe. Right, I'm gonna delete your swearing, but I will say OnePlus 5 is the best, so says you. Fire them into the into the live chat. just trying to gauge which you guys are feeling more. You feeling the OnePlus 5? You feeling the View 10? Okay, so Geotestas says the View 10 will hopefully get EIS, electric image stabilization, over an update. Fingers crossed. Haven't heard anything from Honor on that, but we'll follow that up with them. The big thing I've seen so far in all the unboxings and reviews, why are people looking at bezels so much? Do they really have to? Well, bezels are a big deal for a lot of people, guys, so that's why I thought I would bring them up. And of course we had Jane comment. Next picture. We have got selfie camera. So the front camera on both the high resolution, you've got 16 megapixels on the OnePlus 5T versus 13 megapixels on the Honor View 10. Now the clarity and sharpness is actually really similar. You don't need a huge amount of clarity. You look at the iPhone 10 and it's only 7 megapixels. What you want is quality, and both are very, very similar quality. So it gets really, really close up. It's a wide angle of view that's on the Honor View 10 that will really, really help things. And with the wide angle of view, that means you'll be able to potentially get more friends in frame. As for the OnePlus 5T, less wide angle of view, but it does warm things up a little bit more. It's a little bit more flattering. Just a quick one, guys. We've got something in the back. It's in there. It's, yeah. Cool. Sorry about that, guys. We had a little technical glitch behind the camera. So the OnePlus 5T and the Honor View 10 selfie cameras are really, really comparable. It really will come down to which you prefer, the wider angle of view or the less wide angle of view. Moving across picture, and this is what's really interesting. Huawei and Honor said that the Kirin 970 is going to be much, much better at more accurately picking up greens, and actually, as this proves, their smart green filter for plants and things like that is really hit or miss, because it was hit with the background defocus. But actually, this isn't the better shot of the two. The OnePlus 5T is much, much more print ready, higher contrast, richer colors, and generally speaking, it produces a picture that I would want to view on my phone more. And the fact of the matter is, this all comes down to two things: contrast and metering or exposure. The OnePlus 5T has much, much more pleasing contrast and exposure. It slightly underexposes in good light by comparison to the Honor View 10, in spite of the fact it has that better aperture. And so with the OnePlus 5T, you get a point shoot job done picture, whereas the Honor View 10 just leans towards those pictures that you might want to tweak a little bit as you're taking the picture. I found, just like with the Mate 10, just like with the Mate 10 Pro, when I scrubbed my finger down a little bit, or like reducing the exposure when I came to tap to focus, I was able to get a much, much more pleasing shot. So if you want to do that, then the View 10 is a great, great option, and I'll come on to at the end some of the manual modes, which makes amateur enthusiasts this a no-brainer. The Honor View 10 will be the one for amateur enthusiasts, but out of the box point shoot, the OnePlus 5T so far is the clear winner, and that's in good light. But what about low light? Well, we're not quite there yet, guys. We are talking about high contrast scenes before we jump into low light. And this is really where that auto HDR on the OnePlus 5T once again really comes into its own. You can see the detail in the bark, in the trees, the foreground, the background and everything. It's just way, way better on the OnePlus 5T. And the reason is purely that auto HDR feature. So if Honor and Huawei could get that auto HDR feature through a software update onto the Honor View 10, it would mean that it would compete in situations like this. What's also similar is you've got very similar kind of exposure for the sky itself. It is just the foreground which is affected, which means that it is categorically the dynamic range which is different. That said, you do have a beautiful silhouetting on the Honor View 10 picture, and as a result it is nice and sharp. Both of these pictures are beautifully sharp, but again, the OnePlus 5T edges ahead. Right, now it's what you've all been waiting for. Very, very low light. And you can see the OnePlus 5T exposes more in this instance, which means you've got more of a variable exposure. So again, it puts into question the smart AI features inside the Honor View 10's camera. The main reason being the View 10 has an excellent camera, but to get the excellent stuff out of it, it's stuff that we've seen before from Huawei. You'll want to play about with the manual modes, you'll want to use their night shot, which is class leading, like so class leading, but the point and shoot stuff, which is the AI story that they're bigging up right now, isn't necessarily going to give you the better picture out of the box. You can see in the close-up you just have a lot more detail, a lot more noise admittedly, because you've got so much exposure by comparison to the View 10, but you also have a lot more detail in the OnePlus 5T, and both of these phones are tap to expose and tap to focus as well, and so we were tapping on the exact same focal point across both, and that was that post-it note. And in low light, the Honor View 10 wins out. Now jumping on to the next picture, the Honor View 10 isn't struggling quite so much, but when you look up close, thanks to that reduced contrast and still relatively aggressive noise suppression, you have a lot less detail in the View 10's picture. So what that means, working your way from beginning to end of this comparison, is in plain automatic mode, the OnePlus 5T even is our winner, and that is with a couple of caveats. One of the caveats is that the Honor View 10 is more enjoyable to take macro shots in. The macro shots were a little bit sharper. Both of them had a beautiful amount of background defocus, natural background defocus. What you've also got when you do have background defocus mode on with the Honor View 10, you're able to change the focus. You also have a lot more shooting modes, so whether it's light painting, whether it's night shot, the Honor View 10 and the Mate 10 Pro are two of the only phones in the world that can do good light trails. So you can actually in a brightly lit day do a light trail, and because of how smart it is with compositing the pictures that it's shooting, you actually still get some light trailing even in daylight, which is mind-blowing. You're never ever going to be able to get that with just a simple slow shutter speed that you will have on the OnePlus 5T. So for anyone who likes to dive in manual modes, the OnePlus 5T is definitely not the one I would go for. But if you are looking for an out-of-the-box point, shoot, there's your picture. It's a OnePlus 5T that's a winner, and when it comes to that selfie camera, they're both so comparable that there wasn't enough in it to call it. So that has been it. I've left your comments for a fair bit of time, and I can see that there are quite a few. So let's dive into those. Which one would you buy? It really does depend on the price and what I was after. If you really care about storage and want the most storage for your buck and the most battery, I would opt for the Honor View 10, as that's better in both, but again, and also the more manual camera features. But if you want what feels like a more stock Android experience, you want what has a slightly more small in-hand feel comparatively, then I would probably opt for the OnePlus 5T and that better out-of-the-box point shoot camera. Both of these though, it's really obvious from the point you talk about the camera right through to the screen, the UI, everything. Both of these are much better than you would expect to be getting for £450. That's sterling price here in the UK. So they are excellent value for money. The British Unknown says, a OnePlus 5T destroys the Honor View 10 in the grass one. It kind of felt like it did, especially when it comes to that background defocus. It was just interesting about the colors, and it's interesting that what looks like it's better on screen side by side, when you go to the actual scene itself, isn't always better, but in other situations it was. You have got an inconsistent result across this entire comparison. Not all were showing that the OnePlus 5T was better, but also photography is so subjective, and that's why we wanted to do this as a live show. We wanted you guys to be able to participate, download the photos for yourself. If you're just joining us a little bit late, you can see all the photos in the link in the description below this video, and you can gauge which one you prefer, because ultimately it's not our money that will be going into these phones. It is yours if you're looking to buy them, so you can reach that decision yourselves. Right, let's see what else you guys are saying. Does EIS help for taking stable photos, or is it only when recording videos on the 5T? EIS could help. EIS should help for things like auto HDR. So anyone who doesn't know, EIS is electric image stabilization, and that crops in slightly to the ample pixel count on both of these cameras in order to compensate for any handshake. And so with HDRing, what you effectively need to do is take 3 shots back to back, and if you've got more of a crop factor in there, you'll lose some of the width of the angle, yes, but you will also, if it's held stable electrically, be able to take better HDR photos. And if indeed OnePlus has employed the EIS with the photos, as we've seen with the auto HDRing, it's paid off. So hats off to them for having created a new phone which has really decent performance across low light and good light. Yeah, in spite of the £450 price tag. The British Unknown, OnePlus 5T is way nicer than the V10. V10 is way overexposed, yep. So Huawei does tend to overexpose by default on its cameras. Is Honor known to update its cameras, or will it stay like this? Couldn't say categorically. Honor's known to update their phones. Honor, I think the Honor 8, I've got Android 8 running on mine, or a beta. So Honor isn't one of those brands that just never updates their phones, but how much of that makes its way through to the camera, I'll have to watch this space. From Spain, Edu S says, what about the batteries on these two? Like I said, you've got around 3,300 versus 3,750, and the Honor View 10 battery is better. It lasts a bit longer, but both of these should see you through a day. So if that's your benchmark, then you should be good with either of them. Hello, Tech Spotter. Good to have you on here. Akash says, I didn't see the which one will you buy comment. Which has a better portrait mode? So the better portrait mode is going to depend on what you prefer. So if you prefer a device that shoots portrait mode and just has cleaner lines around your ears, etc., that will probably be the OnePlus 5T. If you prefer something that you can play about with afterwards, so you take your picture, you can focus on the background, you can focus on the foreground, change the amount of blur that there is, then that will be the Honor View 10. So again, the out of the box result on the OnePlus 5T is better in terms of the clean lines, as we demonstrated with the portrait mode of the sign and with the portrait mode of the grass, but you won't be able to play about with it afterwards. Almost done here. It's separate chip that processes voices, which has a better camera. That's what this video has been about, so watch it from the beginning. Hi guys, I have the OnePlus 5T. It is incredible. Coming from a OnePlus One, it's a huge step, and dash charge is awesome. And that's from Paul King 36. Happy for you, Paul King. Glad you were enjoying your new handset. The picture is more saturated on the View 10. The pictures do look a bit more saturated. Yes, saturation is higher in certain pictures, and also contrast is lower, and that's an interesting look. OnePlus 5T has lesser field of view than the 10, so that's the reason photos look clearer at 300% zoom, and that's from Mate S. Yes, you're right. So what you can do, Mate S, in fact, you've already done it. You've commented on our Google Photos album, so thank you for doing that, taking part in this live video before we were even live. Low light selfies are awesome with the front screen lighting up, which creates great results. Paul King, that's on the OnePlus 5T, and that is also the situation on the Honor View 10. The front screen lights up really nice and bright. Both these screens go really bright. The Honor View 10 goes up to 430 nits, which isn't the brightest out there by any means, but it's still really sufficient, and it goes as dark as, I think it's 3 nits, so when you're bedtime reading, you're not gonna be troubling your eyes too much. And they've also got those blue light filter modes that help you from screwing up your sleeping patterns with looking at blue screens all day. Let's see. Right, I think I'm making my way through questions pretty quickly. I've got a couple left. How will Google Camera perform across both of these? Haven't tried them actually, and that's from Ishan. That's a really interesting question. We'll test that out. Which has better audio output? Both of these have 3.5mm outs. We haven't tried them side by side, but that's one for our audio expert, John Porter. I might get him to try that before next Thursday's live show. Oh no, next Thursday he's going to be in CES, so that might be one for the Thursday after. So Akash, you've thrown that question in twice. Hopefully the fact that we haven't got an answer doesn't disappoint you too much, but hopefully by next time you watch, we will. And that is pretty much all of the questions. The big thing about this was all about you downloading the photos for yourselves and reaching your own decisions, which has a photo or quality that you like the most. One thing that I haven't spoken about is like the actual user interfaces themselves. And so to just give you a really quick run through, I'm going to ask my handy cameraman Tom to pinch in here. We've got the main like shooting screen, and you've got a bunch of options at the top. You've got wide aperture mode on, wide aperture mode off, and swipe in from the left, and this is where the Honor View 10 really comes into its own. You've got photo mode, you've got pro photo mode, which is manual, you've got video mode, you've got pro video mode. Pro video mode allows you to engage manual controls when recording video. This from memory is something that the OnePlus 5T doesn't have. So if I go into video, yeah, there's no manual video mode, so that's cool. So you can do stuff like manually focus on close-up objects. So if I tap through to manual focus, for someone like our video producer Tom, who is sat behind the camera, having video where you can do stuff like focus in on the closest focal range could create some really nice impactful video stuffs. You've also got AR lens, which is ridiculous. It basically, in fact, let me jump into the gallery and find this picture of myself. Yeah, so this is me as a blushing bride. You can apply a ton of filters to your face. It is a little bit like Snapchat, and it is a lot of fun. You can also create AR effect videos too. This is me in what looks like a very cutesy chibi cafe, and jump out of that, and I will jump back into the camera mode. So that's AR effects. You've also got 3D panorama. You've got monochrome, which is native monochrome because you've got that black and white sensor on there. HDR. Now you've got an HDR mode, but it isn't auto HDR. So that's another area that the OnePlus 5T won ahead. You've got night shot, panorama, light painting, time lapse, slow-mo, artist's mode. Artist's mode's pretty neat. It's this kind of Prisma type effect setup. You've also got a range of filters, watermark, document scan, and I'm pretty sure you're sick of hearing my voice because there are just so many shooting modes on here, and that's where the Honor View 10 kind of is trying to really differentiate itself by comparison to the OnePlus 5T, which is significantly simpler, significantly more, dare I say it, Apple and iPhone-y. You've got video, swipe across, you've got photo, swipe across, you've got portrait. Now that isn't everything. If you swipe up, you do have additional shooting modes: panorama, time-lapse, pro mode, slow motion, photo. And if I tap through on pro mode, I can do stuff like get a shutter speed for as much as 30 seconds, which is cool. So you can still do stuff like light trails, but it just is not going to be quite as extensive photography suite as is found on the View 10. So hopefully you now have a really clear understanding as to how the cameras performs, how you can maybe eke a little bit more out of your Honor View 10 if indeed you go for it, and which one you would put your money down on. If I've missed any of your questions, then please fire them into the comments when this video goes live and is sticky. If you've enjoyed it, click that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel. That's how you will stay on top of all of our live videos. Thanks for watching, guys. Have an excellent weekend ahead. Bye.